Where do you see the church with its relationship to the government in 5 years regarding the issue of homosexuality?
If things keep going the way they're going and there is no blessing from God in the sense of widespread repentance, it's all-out warfare and eventually a complete loss of all the protections that we've had in regards to taxation. I believe
501c3 gone.
Yeah, I believe that that'll be considered discrimination. It'll be under hate crimes laws. And as a result, I think there is going to be a fundamental reorganization of Christian education. It's either going to have to abandon any type of specific Christian label, or it's going to have to exist without Pell Grants, student loans, any of those kinds of things. It's going to have to be completely done separately from and fully taxed, and maybe even at a higher rate than the government. And I think that's eventually going to do what may be a good thing, because I don't know about you. When someone asks me, where does the New Testament teach about Christian education? I can only think of one text, and that's where Paul says to Timothy, pass on the things you've heard from me to trustworthy men. Well, the only way I can know if someone's trustworthy is if I live with them. In other words, that education is taking place within the context of the local church. And I think there's going to be a whole lot more of that in the future, absolutely of necessity. Because unless God grants some type of reprieve, some type of restraint of this out-of-control train, it seems to me that what is becoming the prevalent note in the society is that what you do, Todd Friel, and what I do in expressing our Christian faith is going to be classified as hate and bigotry, and is going to be against the law of the land.
So you're optimistic?
I'm optimistic that Jesus Christ is still in control of his church, and that we need to recognize that our brothers and sisters around the world have been facing these issues long before we did. We Americans are going to be learning from people outside of our borders.
Yeah. Now, 10 years. Where do you see the relationship of Christianity, specifically the local church now, 10 years with the state?
Well, again, if it keeps going the way it's going, our property is going to be taxed. You're going to be looking at much smaller churches, purer churches where let me use the illustration I've used for years. If this coming Sunday morning there is a pencil-necked geek bureaucrat standing outside the front door of your church, I used to say with a clipboard, okay, with an iPad, taking your information, your social security number, your name and address, and you know that walking through that door is going to double your taxes. What happens to our attendance?
I got to tell you something. I like that idea a lot. Not the taxes part, but the purging and the cleansing.
Well, that's my point.
It would not be a bad thing for the church.
That's my point. That's what's going to be coming, because that's what has happened everywhere else.
Yeah, but here's what I think is perhaps not an exclusively American, but I think on steroids, the attitude that that'll never happen here.
I know.
That's not us.
I know.
Hello, we're 21st century Americans.
That's why it's going to be so easy for it to happen, is that we don't know history anymore. In America, we don't know why we did the things we did to establish a form of government that we established. We don't recognize that the separation of powers, because we recognized, no, all the founding fathers were not a bunch of Christians and great theologians and all the rest of that stuff. Some were. The point was there is a fundamental recognition of the fact that men have an evil heart, and therefore there needs to be restraint upon them, because once they have power, they're going to use the power in a corrupt way. We've lost that because we no longer have a creator. We no longer have a transcendent meaning for man. Man's just the accident of the impersonal universe. And the naivete that has set in to the American mind as a result is what's going to allow all this to happen.
Yeah, and I fear just an overall lack of education. Is there anything that the evangelical Christian who is hearing this can do?
Of course.
What? Number one.
Number one is each one of us individually and in our families must be absolutely convinced within our hearts of the truth of the gospel, the inspiration, inerrancy, and preservation of the Bible, and that we have been called to serve Jesus Christ where we are, to be salt and light, no matter what the cost. Right. That's the very first thing. No more comfortable Christian. No more I mean, the word faith movement needs to move to someplace because its very fundamental mindset is completely opposed to what I'm talking about. A willingness to suffer for the gospel.
Well, the word faith prosperity gospel people, they're going to be in big trouble. Their numbers.
I don't know. They're doing well in Africa.
Yeah, but they're not underneath the persecution that you're predicting.
But some of the places in Africa they are.
Because people are greedy everywhere.
Well, it's an escapism.
I'm not saying that they're going to disappear, but you know they're going to shrink, and so are the silly centers where we put on, Highway to Hell is the opening Easter worship song. Who's going to go to see a second-rate singer when
if
they
it costs
know
you.
if it actually costs
Exactly.
something as
Right.
opposed to profits you in some way, shape, or form?
We can hope so.
So make sure that you've got your own individual house in order. I'm going to make it number 2. Your family is in order. Number 3.
The church itself.
Yay, we're on the
church
same
itself
page.
Has
The
to
local
be focused,
church.
has to know what a church is supposed to be, why we're there, what worship is. Recognize that the fundamental act of worship is the proclamation of God's truth, that it's not about us, it's all about Him. When you have a focus upon what the church really is biblically, and you've got everybody on the same page. What's the New Testament emphasis all the time? Be of the same mind, of the same attitude. When we're all pulling the same direction, even if it's swimming upstream, then we'll help each other do it.
Yeah, so I those are very practical things. So if you are hearing Dr. James White make this little prediction, did you get a word?
No.
Okay. So for whatever it's worth, James White predicting what could be coming down the pipe. You watch Fox News and you're
That's a
going,
good
oh,
irony.
no, this is horrible. There's something you can do. Take care of self, family, local church. Fight for it like nobody's business for the purification of your local church. And that's something you can do that will have an impact and perhaps change the course of where you think that this is headed.